You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening.
You're listening to Innovation Fuel, a business podcast by University Canada West.
Bringing you fantastic stories from accomplished entrepreneurs and key industry professionals. Let's explore the entrepreneurial world through local businesses and our university community. Hello, Gelareh. How are you? Hey, by the way, Gelareh, have you signed up for your summer camps yet? Because if you haven't, you're out of luck because they're going to go quickly.
On Wednesday morning, I had to ask my students to come late to the class to register on the summer camp, which is open at 8 and will gone in 10 minutes. What do you do with summer camp?
Well, for me, I'm very lucky, man. My wife is mostly at home a lot, does some odds and ends of ththings, but mostly she takes care of the kids.
You have to also consider that your wife gave up something, her professional work.
Well, I think, Gelareh, and my wife, Heather, and I talk about this all the time. Like, she definitely has a love and a passion for the kids, but she's always in the back of her mind going, I had to leave behind my teaching career in order to do this because we just couldn't sustain both of them at the same time. Now she's thinking about how she can get back into doing something. Again, it's a tough thing. She loves being with the kids and loves being involved in their activities and involved in them. But she is also kind of stressed because she goes to other peers and other peers are working moms and this and this. And she's like, okay, she has this guilt. Like I think a lot of moms have of this element of I don't have enough time for my kids or I'm not pushing my career ahead.
That is a battle for every day for any mother. So when you want to go to work after maternity leave, you're always asked the question, should I go back or should I stay home? What's the benefit for my family? What's the cost? And some of us will give up of working and just stay at home because the cost is higher than benefit. And I think the society is losing a lot of talent in this way because the cost it's way more higher than benefits.
I agree. I'm just saying agree. And I just want to say happy Mother's Day, by the way. I forgot to say that to you, but
say happy Mother's Day to your wife as well. I think that today we have two brilliant guests that can help us a little bit crack down on the motherhood and the challenge of working mothers. Let's welcome Jamie Samhan, CEO and founder of Hop Wellness, Paige Mowbray, social worker counselor.
Yes, welcome to Innovation Fuel, brought to you by University Canada West. Today, we're going to talk about mothers, and we want to learn more about some of the things that mothers are still challenged with out there and how we can help them overcome these things. Maybe we can have some conversations around these things. We brought some wonderful guests here from a variety of different backgrounds to talk about. Before we get going, let's get to know our guests first. Tell us a little bit about you and your background.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Paige. I am a mother of, fortunately, young people now in their 20s, having had survived the grind of having young children. I'm a social worker by training. I work as a counselor therapist in private practice. I work predominantly with women who have experienced lots of challenges in their lives, relating to the juggling of motherhood, perinatal mental health, trauma, and other challenges that everyday women are experiencing. So thanks so much for having me today.
Obviously, I'm a mother here as well, but my business background is I used to be managing editor and royal correspondent for Entertainment Tonight Canada, which sounds very, very exciting, but I became exceptionally burned out and the stress of the job really, really took a toll on my health. And that's when I started to realize that there was no wellness programs out there that were fit for mothers, for fit for women in business. Everything took a lot of time and it was very time consuming or costly. So I kind of set out to change that and create a wellness program that was holistic and that you could fit within your day.
Thank you for joining us. Also, I'm a mother of 7 years old daughter, girl. So we are mothers all here, working moms. So talking about working moms, what are your challenges as a working mom?
So for me, my kids are much younger still. So mine are 7 and 9, and I'm also fairly recently separated. So it's really just trying to find that balance between being there for all their needs as well as being there for running my company. So there's perks to being separated, the fact that we share them 50-50 and everything's very amicable, but also just the emotional toll of trying to deal with all of that as an adult, trying to run your company, but then also being there fully present for your children at all moments that you can be, and kind of guiding them through this. So that's probably one of the biggest struggles that I'm personally dealing with.
That's certainly relatable to me. As I was working and raising my sons, it's also what I hear commonly from women in counseling is this sense of tremendous guilt and responsibility for a sort of appearing seamless at all times. Like, I am parenting in a way that, is absolutely the most pro-social for my children, but I'm also working in a way that I'm like at the top of my field at all times. And I think there's a lot of tremendous pressure on women to meet these expectations. And I think it's, largely impossible. And so often I think women internalize these experiences as being something where they're lacking. And really, we live in a society and in a culture that makes it really difficult. We were raised that we could have it all, and then we have it all, we can't do it all. I think there's just tremendous pressure on women. I think there's a lot of guilt. I think there's this sort of sense of, I am not 100% in my role as a mother, and I also can't be 100% in my role as an employee or a small business owner, and therefore I'm failing, when really it's actually the workload is probably just too high.
Yeah, but I found that Canadian society is way more open than others cultures about the mothers. So I think that as a Middle Eastern mother, I have a lot of responsibility, a lot of expectation from me.
Yeah, definitely the guilt comes into it, and feeling that maybe I'm not being there, being present is a big one. Sometimes there's just emails that need to be answered and you try to be there for them, and then they call you out for it and they're like, why are you on your phone? You're supposed to be doing this with me. So yeah, it's the guilt and kind of perceptions that society has on what they think that you should be doing, and everybody has an opinion, and obviously not all those opinions are right or right for you. So it's dealing with how to sort through that as well.
We'll take it back over to you, Paige. Like, I know I saw you react when you saw the guilt element, when Gelareh said guilt. Tell us a little bit more of what the challenges you're facing.
Absolutely. And I mean, women often really, their career is very, very valuable and important to them. There's also the reality of just living in today's society with the cost of living. So it's not possible for most of us, almost all of us, to live any other way. So we are, despite what we might value or want from our lives, we have to be high income earners for our families just in order to sustain the cost of living. So I think it's a tremendous amount of pressure.
I think the feels of anxiety all the time, there is something missing, and always my brain is in alert mode because I have to do something. Either it is work related or home related or my daughter related. It's something. I never have a peace of mind. Just sit and don't think about it. Just enjoy the moment. I don't have that. And I think it really impacts the wellness of the mothers.
Yeah, I know my to-do list is always, the notes section on my phone is a mess because it's a constant list of everything that needs to be done, whether it's for the children, whether it's for the business. And yeah, I do think it takes a big toll on people's, just their well-being, and be able to just sit there and relax. And, it's so easy to say, well, just go meditate for a few minutes, but it's not that easy to just clear your mind. I will be the first to admit I am not great at it either. And the thing that I have found that works best for me is just finding the things. Meditation, not my thing, but being able to go for a walk. One of the other many responsibilities on my list is taking our dog for a walk. So finding a meditative state as much as humanly possible for somebody who has a million things on the go, even if it's just taking a dog for a walk for 5-10 minutes, finding something that works for you. And if not sitting still, clearing your mind and meditating, that's fine. That's okay. It's not for you. But trying to find something that, even if it is just a few minutes, that will help you, probably the advice that I give most of the other mothers.
But what about other pieces of society, like government and accessibility to services can help mothers, and especially working moms? What about those? Are there any challenges that mothers are facing?
I I'm so glad to see that there has been certainly a push towards $10 a day daycare in BC. It's not rolled out universally. And of course, there is such a shortage of childcare in general. But I remember before I even had my children, we were talking about that certainly at a federal level, that childcare should be $10 a day, the way it has been in Quebec for decades. And so I think that there is certainly some movement in that direction, which is great, but far too slow. And so what happens is that women are trying to piece together strategies that will work at different times and ages and stages of their children. And I think the other part of that is that, as we live in this very much a global community, which is fantastic in so many ways, what we have lost often is that network of having extended family around us. So many of us live in cities where we connect with our families in a remote way, but we don't necessarily have, and I think for women and certainly around Mother's Day, we don't necessarily have that community of mothers around us the way that traditional societies have had, and we certainly saw many, years ago in Canada. And so I think that wisdom, that support, that actual practical day-to-day assistance is really, really has really changed. And now, we look to paid outside childcare as a potential solution, whereas, 100 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case in Canada. So what's happening in our larger society is definitely impacts day to day on how mothers are able to manage the relentless juggle.
I'm an immigrant mother. I don't have any support system. My mom is not here. So it's just me and my husband. I have to deal with everything. And also because I'm a working mom, I don't have to socialize with other moms. I don't have to find time to have a friend with them, to be friend with them. If I need something, I don't know where to go, because every time that mothers have some social gathering events during my work time or during that it's after, it means I have to take care of my daughter. So I'm always miss those social events. So I cannot find friend or be very close relationship with them that I ask help. That is big part. And also, as you mentioned, the costs. Just look at the summer camp right now. Every week is $375 or $390 for just weekly summer camp. As a working mom with no social support, I always have to register my daughter for a whole summer, and it costs me over $3,000. So how much I have to work to pay those summer camps? This is a big part of the problem in society for me as an immigrant working mom. And I can see that some mothers gave up on working because they cannot, pay the costs of after school or summer camps.
Yeah, that was my mom. She had 3 under 3 and she just wouldn't be able to make enough to pay for childcare for 3 children. So fortunately, my dad had a job that he could sustain them, and it was tight, but yeah, she had to stay home because she would have just been basically paying that would have been the whole thing, to send all of us to school or to childcare. So she missed out on her career, which she did want.
This is really something when you're saying that mothers should sacrifice their aims of professional growth because of their kids. On the other hand, society needs working people, right? Society for economic growth, they need talented people. And half of those talented people are women. So they have to give up on something, either to work or be mother. And to me, this is the systematic discriminations against a woman. What do you think, what should government and society do for it?
I think we learned a few things out of the pandemic, despite the tremendous stress on parents. And there's been a lot of research on mothers and the impact of the pandemic. But I also think, some new ideas did emerge. I think the idea of remote work has been helpful for some. It's not a perfect solution by any means. It doesn't take the burden away, but it can make the juggle feel like things are a little bit smoother. And so certainly there was, in the last 6 months or so, a lot of dialogue around the return to the office. And I think for mothers that had sort of been able to stabilize their childcare situation because of their ability to work remotely, that return to the office has been a real burden. And, I'm curious to know if the benefits of the return far outweigh the actual stress on employees, because we live in a society where kids in traditional childcare centers are not able to attend programs when they're sick. Someone has to be at home taking care of those children, and that often falls to moms to do. And the only way that you can do it without feeling tremendous pressure from your employer is when you're able to work remotely and do that juggle in some way. So I think for a lot of women, it has offered a little bit of an opportunity to kind of just sort of stabilize things. It's not be all end all by any means.
I have 3 kids, by the way, and a wonderful wife that is actually mostly stay home because of 3 kids and the activities they do. But then I think of other individuals out there, and especially around the activities and the effect on the child. If the inflation is high, all these things are high, you need to work, you can't get them to activities, or you can't get them to the activities to actually support their activities. Like, they're being affected by this element too. So it's kind of a two-sided element to this.
I know I have to drive into the city for a lot of that, and my schedule is flexible and I do work from home most of the time. But when you do have to be into this city for things, I have to calculate at least an extra 2.5 hours into my day just commuting. And then once again, there's the issue of, well, where do the children go? Most childcare is not for an hour in the morning or an hour and a half in the afternoon. So there's just that constant battle of, how do you schedule it all in?
Yeah, I feel for you. I do. But some jobs, like my job, I have to be in campus at least 3 days a week. And it's bring another anxiety to me to be on time and leave on time to make sure I can pick up my daughter. But if it's a traffic in line, as an immigrant mother, I don't have anyone to call. Please pick up my daughter. That is a lot of anxiety it brings. But some of the jobs, they don't have the luxury of working from home all the time. What kind of accommodation we can have for working moms?
I think enhanced childcare, for sure. I mean, childcare is a necessity for women to have an equitable place in the workforce. There's no question about that. But also, childcare needs to be able to meet the realities of people's schedules. For instance, there are thousands of healthcare workers who work 12-hour shifts, and childcare never is able to work around that kind of a shift work. For those of us who are commuting long distance, like into the city, because of the cost of living and living so far from where we work, childcare doesn't necessarily accommodate the challenges and schedules. So I think that's definitely one piece. But also I think it's about the informal connections and communities that is so important in our lives, and often largely missing in a more urban community where you have people that you can rely on. When our families are living in other parts of the world, that is especially necessary. I mean, we are wired to connect, and we need to have people in our lives that we can lean on.
There is some, but the wait list. The wait list for those is huge, We understand there is a shortage of daycare or aftercare or whatever, childcare, childminding. We know that. What kind of benefits or incentives do we offer to those people that we can start their own business?
I think that's a really, really good point. If you want to look at the wait list for childcare, we need to understand why is childcare so hard to access. And one of the reasons is that it's a female-dominated field that is largely very poorly paid. And in this cost of living environment, it's very hard to be able to support yourself on those lower salaries. So it makes it hard to attract wonderful people to the field.
Absolutely. Just look at the summer camp, back to the summer camp. They open the list of the summer camp classes, programs at 8 a.m. and they will fill in 8:10. 10 minutes after that. And we work. I had a class this week on the summer camp time. I had class. I had to ask my student come 10 minutes later that I can actually register my daughter. Why is like gambling?
I compare it to the Hunger Games. Trying to get your children into swim lessons or into summer camps is like the Hunger Games.
Absolutely. So it's showing the shortage of facilities for summer camps. It's not affordable still. I told you it's very expensive. Still, there's a lot of people are applying because we don't have any other choices than summer camp.
You know, when you have to sign up and you have to feel like you're in a lottery kind of system, who's being excluded? And so, you know, we know that there are kids that would potentially really benefit from those opportunities, but it requires some resources for moms to be able to initiate that, to sign them up, to be able to cover the cost, all those things. So, you know, it's certainly not even a system that's accessible to every child or family.
Yeah, it takes a community to raise a child. You know, it takes a community of not only the immediate family, but it's the friends, the elements that are around that element. You know, it definitely becomes like, I love what you're saying, Paige, because I think the other side of it, I love even what Jamie said, hey, what happens if I need immediate services because I have to go do it with this emergency? Where's the community support? Where's those pieces that I can quickly say, hey, someone can look after my child or pick them up from school because I got to go deal with this?
Yeah, as somebody who runs a company and other people I've spoke to who also have their own, it's now trying to realize, and COVID did help with this a bit, is that maybe you don't need to be tied to your desk. Obviously, for people who have to be in person, this doesn't always necessarily work, but you don't need to be tied to your desk 9 to 5. If you get the work done in the time that works for you, that's really what the ultimate goal of your job is. It's much more proficient and successful in your job when you kind of have that flexibility. So I do see more employers starting to go that way. Unfortunately, though, for positions where you can't do that, it makes it a lot more difficult. And I'm definitely not an expert in that area of what they could do, but something needs to be done to help mothers because there's so many different roles, like retail, for example. Obviously, they can't just leave the store, but there needs to be some sort of flexible schedule.
Especially as the federal government being such a huge employer and also sort of setting the tone. I think employers need to, you know, consider what is your desired outcome. And if your desired outcome is to have a engaged workforce where women are visible and participating and working to the best of their capability, then you need to design systems that support women and the realities of women's lives. And I think, you know, you do hear like the one-offs, like my employer is really great and I'm able to like start early. I leave for 2 hours. I get my kids, do the shuffle. And then I work with like 2 hours in the evening. And that's how it works for me for this point in my life. And I think those are one-offs and those are great. But when we take away, as the federal government's doing, is take away the idea of having a policy that generalizes across, it makes it harder. Employees are at the mercy of their individual manager to help support them.
You know, guys, this conversation has been absolutely brilliant. And I love that we're starting to open some of these things. And I think we're starting to challenge some of these things and even perspective of these things, both on a social, corporate level, as well as an individual level. But what kind of a challenge can we throw out to our audience here? We got to get people to think differently here. And maybe we can throw out a challenge either to the students that are listening to this, or even the macro audiences listening to this, a micro challenge, a macro challenge, whatever you think will help move this forward. What do you think?
Well, for me, I think we kind of already touched on this, but it's just be considerate of whatever people's situations are. So if you are a manager, or even if you are expecting a service from another company, just be considerate of what their situation might be. And especially, you know, if they're a mother, have compassion for the situation that they're in.
I think that's brilliant, Jamie. And just to sort of tag on to that, I would say, remember that raising children is the most important role in terms of the development, growth, and health of our society. So that is what we need to do. That is the raising of the next generation. And the way that we invest in mothers pays off in our society and future generations for sure. And also just, you know, acknowledge, I think if you're an employer and you see a woman who's a mom who is incredibly stressed out, and you will, to really think like, what role can I play in taking some of this stress off and supporting this person to feel that they're able to perform at their best, not just for that person, but for your organization in general. It will pay off in dividends.
Let me wrap this up by saying, let's do one little thing that's going to change and impact here. Thank you very much, both Jamie and Paige, for your time today. That's another episode. Oh, and my co-host, Gelareh, who's also a mother. I have to recognize that. That's another episode of Innovation Fuel.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Innovation Fuel. We are on all podcast streaming platforms, Google, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Visit our website at www.ucanwest.ca/Innovation Fuel. Also, follow us on Instagram at innovation_fuel.